Well, hello and welcome everyone to the fifth annual EMS Leadership Summit, day number one, our daily debrief. My name is Robbie McHugh.
Hi, I'm Lisa Geritzi. I am so excited to be here. It's been an extraordinary day. So much interaction from participants and the great speakers that we have. I can't wait to start bringing our guests on. Just super, super excited.
Yeah, Lisa, we are in our fifth year of doing this, and we started to do these daily debriefs as an opportunity for people to ask questions of our panel of live speakers today. We're going to talk about some of the sessions that premiered this morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Folks, if you've signed up for a free pass at emsleadershipsummit.com, you've got 24 hours to access today's lineup of sessions. If you wanted lifetime access to all of these sessions, NEMSMA approved CME credits, and additional bonuses, we've put an all access pass together for a very low price, very reasonable investment. And that can be done at emsleadershipsummit.com/AAP for all access pass.
Yeah, and just to mention that the price for that will go up after the summit is no longer live. So if you want to check out some of the sessions, see how amazing they are, and then take advantage of that really cool price for the upgrade to the All Access Pass, which means you have lifetime access to the 30 plus speakers and amazing presentations that we have in our lineup this year.
I'm very excited that we have our guests in the green room. They're ready to come on board. But first, we wanted to cover a few things, folks. If you can put in the comments wherever you're watching from, we'd love to hear where people are watching live from. You can share those comments in whatever platform you might be watching. We are streaming on LinkedIn through the EMS Leadership Academy brand. We're also simulcasting across the Fire Rescue TV network with, I think, over 120,000 followers on that, as thanks to Martin Grube from Fire Rescue TV, as well as about 400 fire and EMS stations throughout the country through their digital signage platform. We also have the High Performance EMS brand as well, with I think close to 80,000 followers. So we're excited to be partnering with all these great brands to bring you a live stream and our guest panels live, or our guest speakers live, to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, and I think what's really appropriate to start by thanking our sponsors, because we couldn't keep doing this year after year without the support of these amazing sponsors who, back when we first started in 2019, people were like, "What do you mean a virtual
We
conference?"
really like to
And
meet people in person.
Robbie designed this amazing interactive exhibit hall, and it has truly taken off. And people now are excited to be a part of this virtual event and to have the opportunity to interact with folks through this amazing exhibitor hall. It's not just logos, folks. Every one of these booths, when you go into it, there's a way to get free information, get discounts, even the boss before operational stress has a giveaway. I mean, these you really want to take the time to check these each one of these booths out. And of course, booth one is where you access any way that you are participating, whether it's free or if you've upgraded to an all access pass, the pass holders can get in here too. So let's shout out to a couple of our sponsors, and then we can maybe go back to the afterwards. But
Let's first go to
uh,
Northwell Health, if we could, since one of our
yes.
best speakers here with us in the green room is Jonathan Washko. And we want to really thank the Northwell Health Center for Emergency Medical Services, Dr. Molly McCain-Pino, that has recorded a session for our summit. And her research since 2015 and her whole department's research, really investing in learning more about emergency medical services, the experiences, and especially her presentation elevating the voices of women within EMS. We've made that session available the entire week. Most of the time, our sessions are available for 24 hours to free pass holders, but it's such an important topic that we wanted to make sure that was available all week long. We've put it here in the Northwell Health booth, as well as all of the open access research studies that the Center for EMS has participated in publishing And there you can read all of that information here and download all these studies.
How about if we go to ninth grade next? Returning sponsor, really great organization. And I love their tagline, one simplified solution. And if you ever find yourself in a place where you feel overwhelmed by the number of things you have to do, or, all the different steps that you have to take, they have really streamlined many of the processes of running an organization. And you can sign up to meet with one of the folks with Bradley Hughes. He's a
Yes.
great guy, and you can ask a question, get scheduled to get a free consultation or a free walkthrough of their product. They have some great stuff in the booth that you can watch, and we hope that you'll check them out.
With that, let's go over to Phase, the patient handling and safety experts, formerly called the Binder Lift Company. The Rick Binder and his family invented this fantastic device that really does put handles on humans and allows you to safely lift patients. And like I've said before, not have to lift under their armpits and risk injury to not only the patient, but the provider. And this device gives you a lot of handles and makes it a much more comfortable experience. And what I think is really interesting is that they are so passionate about EMS safely lifting and moving that they've developed an entire free program, a course to master patient handling. I believe it's about an hour and a half worth of content, and they invested in a lot of high quality videos. And it isn't all product focused. These are the mechanics of the research behind the mechanics of safe patient handling, which we love that idea. And they've also partnered with a company that was based in the UK, the Manger Elk Lifting System, which I think is fascinating. I believe about every ambulance in the United Kingdom is required to have this device on their units with a battery powered air inflation bag that will basically help lift that patient up safely without having to put patients or providers at risks. The one interesting use case I thought about with this that I think is fascinating is that patient that you find in a tub, right? How hard is it to reach and contort your own body to reach in there and try to safely lift that patient out of a tub when this lifting cushion can be slid under a patient and it can just elevate them right out of that precarious position. So the Phase company now, Rick Bender and his company, and Jimmy Gilly have provided, if you reach out to them, there's a free field trial of any of these devices. And I think it's great once your providers have a chance to get their hands on the equipment to try it out. And they will, trust me, will not want to lift the old ways with a tattered hospital sheet or some other improvised system again. So
Yeah, because people don't usually fall right in the middle of the wide open living room, right? Like that's not where
you're
you're
talking about everybody
generally
does.
lifting people up. So let's go to Newton 360 and just shout out to our good friend Scott Moore, who's presenting for us this week as well. But he has this amazing opportunity here with the Newton 360 app. And you really has a lot of ways to um, interact with people, right? Like after a bad call or you want to check in on somebody, let's face facts, mostly people are distributed, right? It's a distributed workforce. So somebody has a bad call, you may not see them in the squad, who knows when you'll have the opportunity to speak with them. So this is a way to be in communication, lots of different ways, not just after a call, but uh, you know, how's it going, right? Just good feedback back and forth between folks. It's really a
And
terrific, well thought out app, I think.
And it's interesting because this app, this platform is bringing in data from your EPCR system, your scheduling system, and really looking out for identifying patterns that might put somebody at risk. People who have had critical calls. How impossible is it sometimes with call volumes increasing to really gauge every critical call? This system is designed to support your supervisors, your field supervisors, and make sure that they at least have a conversation and they're reaching out to people in those more critical times. And Scott has a fantastic background in human resource management and ambulance operations. He speaks for the American Ambulance Association, and does webinars, a lot of webinar training, and speaks at a lot of national conferences. So if you've never had a chance to meet Scott, he's very passionate about what we do and helping organizations and leaders have the tools to help manage their workforce and make sure that they're more supported. And he's put a Calendly link up here if you wanted a demo of that platform and to connect with him about the Newton's 360 app.
Shall we do one more before we go to our speakers? Maybe the NAMI HP?
Absolutely. The National Association of Mobile Integrated Healthcare Providers. So if you know of any opportunity to create a community paramedicine program, if you're interested in that, if you've been researching different integrated healthcare models in order to reduce your high utilizer population or provide more support for patients with substance use disorders, or maybe decrease readmission avoidance, this association is fantastic. They have all different shapes and types of community paramedicine, mobile integrated healthcare programs throughout the country. And they host 2 in-person conferences a year that I had a chance to attend last month in Nashville, Tennessee. And everybody I met, they are on the cutting edge of pre-hospital care and really trying to reduce the burden on our crews by going upstream of a lot of the issues that we're seeing. So this is a very low cost organization to belong to as an individual or an agency. They're doing some fantastic things in coordinating and cataloging all of the different MIH programs out there. And they have a whole guide, a 12-step guide to a successful MIH program, as well as resources for mental health and people that are in crisis. So a really fantastic interview to check out with Dr. Victoria Reinhartz on the GEMS podcast, talking about NAMI HP.
You know, every time we go through the booths, it just, I get moved by not only how generous our sponsors are for supporting us, but how much information they are willing to just offer for free in their booths so that people have a good experience and feel supported. And I just can't say enough about how much we appreciate that. Maybe we could go to our speakers and start, if we can come back to the booths, after we get through, after we start talking to our speakers. And be sure to add questions if you have them. Go ahead and comment if you have a question about anything, any of the presentations today, or comments about the presentations today. We would love to hear your questions. I got a few questions emailed to me today too, so hopefully we can get to those as well.
Or folks, if you're not familiar with the lineup, maybe what are some of the biggest challenges or struggles that you're facing in your organization as a leader? Again, you can put those in the comments of whatever platform you are watching from, and we should be able to take a look at those. So first, let's bring on the Lillian Bonsignor, the retired chief of EMS operations for FDNY. And let me see if we can bring her up. Chief, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Robbie, Lisa? How's it going?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Great.
Thanks for joining us live. And thank you so much for putting your presentation together. I was really honored to have that conversation with you and record that and create the opportunity really to hear after your about your 31-year-long career in one of the busiest systems in North America, I'd say, that in New York City. And the stories you shared, I was really excited for our participants to hear some of these stories. And we've already had people commenting, folks that got early access to the session, how much they appreciated your perspective on not only your work, but what your department went through the COVID pandemic. And it was a fantastic interview. So thank you again for being here and being willing to share your story.
Oh, my pleasure. It was such an honor to be here with you. And I sure hope everybody enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. You know, it's not very often we get to come together with our own peers and have some honest conversation and maybe some honest self-reflection as well.
Yeah, excellent. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to bring our other guests on. So we have Jonathan Washko. Jonathan, welcome. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Chief. Good to see you again.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good to see
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us.
you. Sure. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about your, just give the audience a brief background for those that might not be familiar with your position at Northwell Health, as well as some of the appointed national boards you've had a chance to sit on, the NEMSAC, I believe, and the work that you've done there.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. I'm with Northwell Health Center for Emergency Medical Services based in New York City and Long Island. Been with the organization coming up on 20 years now, and I'm currently the Assistant Vice President for Pre-Hospital Innovation, where I get to do a lot of cool things, including some of the research stuff that we're sharing in the booth that we have, as well as get to work on a lot of local, regional, state, and federal issues as part of the role that I do. Got an awesome opportunity to work alongside Chief Bonsignor with NEMSAC, the National EMS Advisory Council. Cheap plug for them. A lot of people don't fully appreciate who they are or what they do. They're actually, with NHTSA and the Department of the Office of EMS under NHTSA. And ultimately, this group is selected by the Secretary of Transportation to come in and provide advice and counsel to the federal government on challenges and issues in the EMS world, in the EMS sector. And the chief and I had a lot of great opportunity to work together on some really important topics related to many of the current issues, which is really cool. And they meet on a pretty routine basis. You can check them out online and actually participate live during open sessions for audience participation and provide feedback to the council on issues you may have concerns about, as well as they have many advisories that come out to the government that you have a chance to review, provide public comment on, and so on. Also been very lucky to participate in a not well-known group with the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate called the First Responder Resource Group. And they're a group that has primarily been focused on fire and law enforcement, the development of technology, and using federal dollars to seed various projects to help improve first responder issues using technology. And they do have a small number of EMS representatives. I'm fortunate enough and blessed to be, I think, the only non-government official on that. Again, another appointment on a FACA committee. And where we get to go and just nerd out. In fact, it's coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be flying out together where we meet a couple hundred people. We get into various groups and just talk about all of the problems that exist out there and what can we do from technology space and perspective to improve things. At the state level, lots of things we're doing there with the State EMS Advisory Council and trying to help make EMS an essential service in the state of New York. Definitely near and dear to my heart to try to really help fix a lot of the issues associated with. One of the reasons why, took the opportunity on my lecture this year to talk more about that very specific topic and learn more about, especially the more relevant issues right now, which are really more around finance and labor and things like that. So great time. A few of the things I've had the opportunity to do, like I said, I've been very blessed in my career to have had those opportunities, as well as work alongside people like the chief here. So she's amazing as well.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you for sharing some insights into what's happening from both a federal level to state and really local in the innovations that you've been able to highlight really in your presentation that aired today, why EMS systems fail and what to do about it. I felt like you brought a really methodical approach to some of the things you've seen. We talked about the balanced scorecard and a few other opportunities of lessons for leaders to really things to watch out for. So I appreciate your presentation that I think you said it's normally a half a day presentation that you boiled down for us into an hour. So it was certainly a really intense and really detailed presentation. And I appreciate that.
A lot of content. You may have to watch it a few times, I guess, to get it all. But thanks, Robbie. I've been working on this particular issue and learning really from many other organizations willing to share their successes and their failures. It's not something I've done on my own. It's definitely through all of my peers in the industry that I've, again, had the opportunity to get exposure through, whether it's working at some of these various groups or doing consulting work, those kinds of things. And ultimately, there's very much common denominators that I see across most organizations. Most of it has to do with funding. And I think we all know that. And then ultimately is how do we overcome those funding challenges at all levels? And ultimately we need payer reform, but we also need to get paid for the things that we do, which is not just transport patients to the hospital. So, and that's really where the biggest gaps lie is that lack of funding directly for EMS, whether that be municipal support or other types of grant funding, and other revenue sources beyond just billing, an insurance company.
Absolutely. I'd like to also finally bring in Dr. David Daniels. He is in the green room and he's been very patient waiting. David, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Howdy.
Hey.
2 nights in a row. You were with us for the kickoff last night. We so appreciate you being there and being one of our original adopters of the EMS Leadership Summit, early adopters, and being with us every year, speaking on not only the components of physical safety and your passion for safer work environments, also the psychological component, the psychological safety. And you have given me more language than I think I've known what to do with when it comes to the psychosocial hazards and the things I just didn't know I didn't know. And really putting language, and that's what I feel like your presentation helps so many people discover some of those.
Well, and again, thanks for the opportunity to hang out with you all again. The green room has been cool watching from behind the scenes. These two experts talk about the things that they've been doing in the really big system. So, but yeah, I'm pretty happy to be hanging out with you all and kind of share what we can around something that we're all exposed to and didn't really know it. And try to help the United States kind of catch up. There's a bunch of areas where, we are, really leading the pack. But in this regard, I think we're really, really kind of behind. Canada has had a standard around psychological health and safety for 11 years.
Wow.
And and as a matter of fact, they're in their third revision. They revise every 5 years. There's really strong legislation in Australia, great standards over in the UK. I tend to mention the three of those because they're kind of the leaders, but there's 37 countries in the world who've kind of figured out this is a thing. And I feel like my kind of cause celeb is to get people to figure out that psychosocial hazards are a thing as well. They are. They are. And to the extent we can pay a little bit more attention to them, we'll minimize some of the physical hazards that we're exposing people to and some of the injuries that are happening to folks, because nobody is physically harmed without first being psychosocially harmed.
Yeah.
And David, you mentioned that we have 2 very large systems represented. You also hail years ago from a very large system on the West Coast, the Seattle King County Fire Department and
Yes.
the Medic One program. So, I mean, this panel brings such a diverse perspective when it comes to the delivery mechanisms of EMS. And many of us have seen the various methods throughout the country and how, I don't want to say necessarily fragmented or siloed, but they fit the community that they're in. And
Yes.
and in New York City, especially, you've got a very complementary system. You have an immense amount of call volume happening, and it just really is miraculous that all of these systems work together for the same outcome.
Yeah, but I really do want to tag onto the comment that Jonathan made, though, about I don't honestly believe that the funding is the issue. I think the prioritization is the issue, because money is only an issue in the absence of value. And when communities say something is important, they find the resources, just like we do as human individuals. When it's important, we find the money to get it done. And I think what's lacking often is the realization that most, if not all, EMS systems that I've seen are actually the leading edge of the healthcare system. And because sometimes a lot of that, I will say, has to do with the people who are receiving the care, who are sometimes kind of get left out, and if they can't afford a doctor, so on and so forth. But this is an area where we've not put enough priority on the importance of delivering care, in the field. And the better we can deliver it in the field, there are occasions when people don't have to flood the hospital and don't have to end up breaking that system. And a lot of this is about preventative things that we can do. And I'll also say there are ways that we can do this without injuring and killing the providers as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to just say one thing that from David, what you were saying is, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I see is, and it's not just in EMS because I work in a lot of organizations, but is this misunderstanding, really, the myth that there's psychological and physical, right? Like there's really two systems. It's all one system. Like there's no such thing as, oh, it stops here, and that there is no, it's all one thing. And so, that it's kind of like front of the hand, back of the hand more than anything else when you're talking about psychological and physical safety. They're really the same thing with different names. And I think that sadly, the psychological component has been seen as something that doesn't need care, right? Like, you're going to tough it out, you're going to be hard and, all of those things. And, but the impact is, it's all one system. So the impact is just as devastating as it can be if, someone hurts their back or any other physical thing. So I just want to ensure that people really start to see this as the priority that it is, that it's not now we got to talk about mental health, or now we got to talk about, the psychological component. Like, no. Like this is a priority, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm with you. With you 100%.
Yeah, but I think the challenge is we have these conversations. It's kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? Because to your point, we need to focus on it, but we also need the money to fix it. Yes. And so, how do we do that? And then we tend to get in, I think, a lot of these discussions, for example, like the whole degree issue. Do paramedics need degrees or not? Yeah, I think that's great, but we also need the money to pay for those degrees. We need the money to come from somewhere to pay a higher salary and benefits for those additional skills, for those degrees. Just because we have, education doesn't mean money's going to fall out of the sky to pay us more. And that's this particular issue is the same thing. I mean, I think many of us want to ultimately provide for the best safety for our patients and our clinicians and our staff members. And ultimately, we can't do a lot of the things we want to do because we're forced to live within the constraints of the reimbursement system. Like, one of my biggest fears of the FACA system, or excuse me, not FACA, the ambulance cost data reporting, DCAS, or I think that's right, and the federal cost reporting program, is that we're reporting all of these costs, but these costs have all been underspent because we never had the money to actually spend what we should be spending to provide the level of services we want to provide, not just for basic EMS services, but also to provide the right environment for our team and for all of the things you guys are talking about. And so it's a huge challenge, and ultimately we need to your point, you got to prove value. And we can talk about value all the time, but if we don't have data, and we don't have a way to show the benefits, that and the value that come from EMS, I think we find ourselves where we continue to be today. And so hopefully the cost data reporting will get us some direction forward to some of this stuff. But I mean, ultimately, it's probably going to be a lot more than that to help solve a lot of these issues.
And Jonathan, maybe we could touch on the idea of bandwidth. I'm curious, the agency's capacity to now handle these issues. So we see a lot of organizations just trying to survive. And I was actually going to ask you, Chief Monsignor, if you want to talk to you mentioned in your interview about bandwidth and influence, and how did you manage such a busy system and support your leadership team towards the direction that we were going in? I mean, that seems to be an issue that comes up. It's the money and the resources, and then how do we have the bandwidth to even do all of that when we want to meet our basic expectations of a system?
Yeah, I'm not real sure we do have the bandwidth, but I can say that, it takes a village. I didn't do anything single-handedly. I mean, it really required that we all group together and, make our expectations very clear and known to those around us, and elicit the help from the people who were willing to help. I think a lot of times we keep ourselves in a bubble. And because we keep it and we see this in the EMS community across the nation, there are lots of bubbles. There, I mean, I can speak for myself. Coming from New York, we were doing about 1.5 million calls a year. I didn't have a whole lot of time to get to know the folks in the other states and, really build networks and relationships and see if we could learn from each other. We did as much as we could, but we were really kind of hunkered down to try to make sure we were meeting our goals. And there is this fine line between, wanting to care immensely for the employees and provide them with the things that they need. And that's not something that happens very quickly in a bureaucracy, right? This is something that takes a little time. And you're doing this in the same time that your call volume is exploding, and it continues to go up every year. So we're in this position where our call volume is going up, our retention and recruitment is going down, and the people are living in a land that they believe this EMS system will last forever. And I'm not 100% sure that we're in that place right now. I think we look at volunteerism across the country is going down. There's lots of problems that we're facing, and I think one of the things that we had to do, and we made an effort to do, is to communicate clearly and honestly. And that meant that sometimes those answers were not the answers people were looking for, but they were honest answers. And, we had to combat the social media environment where, rumors and conspiracies and things fly so quickly. Sometimes it's almost impossible to stay in front of it. So, we had to communicate. I will make one point about the public too. I think we need to turn them into our allies and advocates. I remember a time before, or right around the time when we were merging with the fire department, because we weren't always part of the fire department, we were part of Health and Hospitals Corporation. And, there was some talk about closing firehouses. And I could tell you that the communities those firehouses are in would not have it. They would not allow the city to close their firehouse. They believed in their firehouse. They supported their firehouse. Yeah, it was a noisy place. It took up parking, but they wanted them there. And I think we've kind of missed the mark on getting the public to support us in the same way. Some of the experiences we've had is we don't want them in our neighborhood. They're too noisy, the sirens of this. But we do want you to be there in 3.5 minutes, if you call for us. So I do think we have to spend some time incorporating the public and educating them as to what services we actually provide them and what that would look like if we wasn't there to do that.
Right. Chief, you are singing my tune, I got to tell you, because I honestly believe a lot of what government does in general that is perceived as failing is because there's never really a conversation about what it was supposed to be in the first place.
Right.
There are things that cities and counties do. There are about 90,000 governments in the United States. 90,000 of them. And they're all types, shapes, and sizes, and they do all kinds of things. And often the folks who pay for them in terms of taxes have no idea what they really do. Right. They know what they saw in the newspaper. They know what they heard from somebody down the street, but they really have no idea. And that is a two-sided conversation. That is both the community being interested enough in their own investment, and then the organization that is providing that investment being concerned enough about that community, because, unfortunately, many of these systems don't really pay enough for the people who work in the system to actually live in the community that they serve.
That's correct.
That's an issue. That's a thing. But on the other hand, even in those systems that do, sometimes the folks providing the service don't really have a connection to the community that they serve. That's why the good old days, as much as I'm not really much into the good old days, but there was something about that community connection, about, I could live and work and play in the same community and be able to interact with folks who I'm actually serving. That is the challenge, is how do we create those connections so people know? And again, I'll bring it back to safety again. If you have a 24-hour service that provides anything in your community and that worker gets hurt, it's going to cost you 3 to 4 times their salary to actually get the work done. It is actually in your interest to make sure that they are healthy and safe and well taken care of so they can come and take care of you. But that's not the conversation that folks have enough to be able to, get folks to recognize these folks are here to help you, but you've got to help them as well.
I think, they're still calling us ambulance drivers. So, I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen publicly. And, what EMS started out as is not what EMS is now. We're not just scooping people off highways and taking them to hospitals. It is way beyond that. And to Jonathan's point, we wore what quad hats, you call it, 4 hats. And that's the truth. And we're getting paid for maybe a third of the job we're doing. So, these are big problems converging in the same space. And it's going to take a village to fix it. It really is. It's not just one answer. It's not just give them the money, although I'm a big fan. Give them the money, right? Like, don't make us wait 100 years to work this out. Give them the money. But it's also the healthcare system. It also is, where do we belong, as far as organization and oversight. There are lots of different problems that we have to solve. And I know that we have some fantastic people coming behind us that are all in and want to help solve those problems. And I sure wish them the best.
Yeah,
I just want to mention, I'm sorry, Jonathan. I just want to say real quickly, I'm so excited that we're going to be able to live stream Honorable But Broken, EMS in Crisis twice during this summit, because so many people haven't seen it, and it's such a great resource for people to educate the public and get the public on our side, so to speak, because so many people just don't understand, myself included. Before, I got involved with Robbie and the EMS Leadership Academy, there were a lot of misconceptions that I had, and I was an EMT at one point. I never rode in an ambulance, but I was trained as an EMT way back in the day, and there were so many things I didn't know. So I couldn't agree more that having people understand the breadth of what EMS provides will really go a long way for people valuing it, and arguing for it and really fighting for it.
And that's what I love about Jonathan and the Center for EMS at Northwell Health, that they are providing the research and the tools behind quantifying and taking those qualitative stories, and then we can point to those. This isn't just my good idea, right? This is showing up now in peer-reviewed research, and then we can take that to hopefully make the case to our elected officials of why this is important, why this matters. And using tools like the Honorable But Broken EMS in Crisis, this was a mom of 3 people that got involved in EMS, and she was an investigative journalist. She was so kind of distraught by seeing the fragmented, broken system that her kids were now working in, that she did a deep dive. And I really give them a lot of credit for going through this whole process and funding it themselves, and getting to the point where they get an A-list celebrity like Sarah Jessica Parker to narrate the entire film. I mean, really, it's a fantastic film. We've got 2 opportunities this week. You can visit the exhibit hall and click on the Honorable But Broken booth and buy a ticket to the live stream. This is the first time it'll be live streamed here at the EMS Leadership Summit. There have been several in-person showings, and we're happy to have the booth set up. And the other thing I'll point to is to tomorrow's lineup. We have Derek Hanley, who was on the West Coast when things started to shut down with the COVID pandemic. And he is a paramedic turned journalist and photographer, and he captured so many moving stories of the providers. And it really did feel like humanizing this in highlighting the stories behind how this impacted the people that were providing care. So him with his storytelling and his photos, it's another powerful tool we have. To Jonathan's point about reimbursement, Maggie Adams talks about reimbursement and compensation. While it's titled for community paramedicine, this really dives deeper into the unfunded and the uncompensated part of what we do. And Maggie is extremely passionate about helping organizations learn the nuances, the ins and outs of getting paid for what they do.
Yeah, I just actually had a chance to see that movie a couple of weeks ago. It was premiered up here, and I didn't fully appreciate or realize actually a lot of it was shot in our region, and including our health systems involved in that. Not outwardly, but many of the people that work for our health system are actually help develop many of the EMS systems in Westchester County, and Westchester is highlighted, which is a suburb of New York. Definitely, I had a chance to to meet the producer and talk with her more about her story and her kid's story. And I feel for her. My son just got his EMT card, and he's just getting started. And I like to share this story. Probably a couple of years ago, probably prior to COVID, I would have told him it's not worth getting into this industry. Don't do it. And I think if there's ever a time to leverage a crisis, don't let a good crisis go unleveraged. To solve these problems, now is the time. And so I told my son, go for it, because I think hopefully, and we're all going to try to do this, there's hope for the future, to make this a career, to make this a safe career, to make this a long-standing career. And if not, at least give you the foundational elements you need to go and expand out, whether that's into additional layers of public safety, or you go into healthcare, or teaching, what have you, all the various opportunities we have within EMS. I think we're starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I know we have a lot of work to do yet, but we do have, I think, a very short window of opportunity to leverage as an industry, and I think we can do it. I see many states getting closer and closer, or already crossed over some certain goals and certain lines in terms of essential service status and funding, in terms of fixing Medicaid issues. A lot of states are still behind, but we also see a lot of good work being done out there by many of our brothers and sisters in EMS, all the various associations out there, really putting a ton of time, energy, and effort to try to get the message out. This movie, spend the money. It's a self-funded passion project for her, so she's not making a ton of money. But she wants to get it out more, and she needs funding to do that. So, please spend a few dollars and give her your support. And, you can definitely use this movie to go show your legislators, to go show your municipalities, government officials. It's very moving. It's well done. It's not over the top, but it really helps, tease out all of the issues that we have in a way that's understandable, and I think can help people really, hopefully, understand, empathize, and then take action on what they need to do to improve their system.
Yeah. I'm not surprised it's a mom that got involved, because moms don't play. You don't play.
Don't screw with mom.
You don't play with their babies. And I'll tell you, Jonathan, I appreciate that you didn't steer your son away from this, because one of the other areas that we are still very young, and we haven't built our bloodline in this career path yet, right? Like, you look at fire, you look at law enforcement, they have fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and uncles and brothers and mothers and sisters who've all been people in these careers. And we're just starting to see our bloodline be born. And, that to me is an important thing to really solidifying this as a career path.
Agreed.
And one of the through lines throughout this summit, throughout all of our sessions, we've been coming back to this idea of flourishing together, leadership practices to really unite and inspire. And we've built this as a platform to elevate the voices of people, like everyone on this live panel, all of our speakers that are just so passionate about what they do, that whether it's using it as a tool for advocacy, external relations, internal relations, caring for our employees. Really, I think, to Jonathan's point, like, this is the moment we have with, like, leverage what we've all went through and gain the public support and the elected official support to really make this a sustainable model where there can be generations of people in this industry, and an industry that doesn't just chew people up and spit them out, that it really does support the person where they can see light at the end of the tunnel, that they have a reasonable amount of years, if you put in a certain amount of time, that you could have a retirement and retire with dignity. I mean, Chief, I applaud you for having a 25-year municipal retirement. I mean, it's rare for our industry to even have. It's a model.
I was very grateful for that opportunity, because you're right, it's hard to find. The other point is, how long do you stay before, like, your retirement is no longer your retirement plan? The whole point of having a retirement is so that you do your job, you serve your communities, you do what you can for humanity, and then you get to step back and give back to your family, who also served those years with you. So I found that to be an important piece, which is what forced me to make this decision to enter retirement, so that I can now serve my family, because every one of them sacrificed for my career over 31 years. So, it's a wonderful benefit to have, and we should be fighting for, all of our EMS organizations to have that, because and to be safe throughout their career, so that they're not bedridden by the time they actually get to 25 years.
That's right.
You're here.
Yeah, no doubt. No
What
doubt.
she said.
Times two. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we've been getting a lot of questions on, not surprisingly, is about retention. And, everything we're talking about, I think, really speaks to that. And, I think this culture, or this past culture of eating our young, where, Robbie and I have heard that so many times, when we've done trainings or done events, and what's it going to take for people to give that up? Like, enough already. It's killing our organizations. It's killing our people.
Yeah.
And yet it lives on.
Yeah.
Well, we have seen the enemy, and he is I. Unfortunately, we say this. I find myself saying this too frequently. Right? Is that we're a lot of the cause of our own challenges, and yet while there are labor shortages, when you look at the real reasons people engage and want to stay in an organization, money's sometimes part of the conversation, but typically it's second or third down the line.
That's right.
The first thing is culture and trust,
That's right.
and as they say, culture eats every strategy for breakfast, I think is the saying, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time in my career to learn that. And ultimately I found that that truly does make the world of retention issues. I mean, the bottom line is, until we can fix our funding to provide a career ladder, that's something that can be done within one organization throughout an entire career in EMS is almost impossible. I moved 10 times around the country in the past, coming up on 40 years in this industry now. Thank you to my wife and my family, who made sacrifices for me to have a career in EMS, because if I stayed in one place, I'd probably be in middle management. So I had to make those personal sacrifices in order to make career, it's obviously my passion, and to make a career out of it, I had to make a lot of other types of sacrifices that most people, don't have to. It's almost like being in the military, and a very, very similar kind of experience. But yeah, we look at the fire service, we look at the police service, law enforcement, we look at other types of groups in the healthcare sector as well. They all have multiple career pathways that are deep and can sustain and can take on multiple generations. We can maybe do one and a half generations, and then we're done. And so, and is that because we should be that way, or is that because we have to be that way? It's my opinion, we have to be that way, because we don't have the funding to put the additional layers of overhead in to go from, I don't know if your supervisors, but our supervisors, I'm proud to say we've gotten them down, I think, 20-to-1 ratio. We were 40-to-1 at one point. The fire service, it's 1-to-3, 1-to-4. Same thing in the police department. It's the appropriate number of direct reports, and then providing our people with the leadership training and the skill sets necessary to then have a career. We can't do that in EMS, that's where I think our challenge is, like to build a career path. We have to have some additional layers. The city's very lucky, and the fire department of New York, they've got a lot of those pieces there. And so you can have a career in a large city organization, but I think once you get out of that, it's very difficult. And that's something we either have to figure out, whether that's we build networks and, we have to work with each other as agencies to share talent and to help move talent forward and be behind them and not be resistant to wanting them help better themselves. And whether that's you do everything you can to keep people in the organization, or if you can't afford to keep them because again, EMS doesn't have the money to have the various layers of overhead, then work with them to help them be successful so that they can take their passion for EMS and help a community. It may not be yours, but there's a lot of really good talent out there, to the Chief's point, and they're behind us, they're coming, and we have to make sure that we've done the best we can to provide them with a good pathway forward and all the right tools to succeed.
Yeah, I think we have to stop convincing them that they don't have answers.
Right.
Yeah. I think, we can't keep doing things the old way and pretending we're going to get new results. I think at some point we have to move aside and we have to let the younger generation bring in their ideas and take us in a direction that my brain wouldn't even, think of. So, I think we have to encourage them and support them and lift them up rather than treat them like our children. And I think, even for me, sometimes I refer to them not on purpose, just because it feels this way. I refer to them as these kids, these kids that are coming out. And honestly, these kids are stepping up. These are grown people. These are people who are stepping up to the front line to serve humanity, and we have to treat them with that level of respect and encourage them and be a resource for them rather than an obstacle.
Yeah, I read here recently that in 2024, the estimates are that Gen Z, folks born 2001 and after, are going to outpace boomers in the workplace. So organizations who, if you don't want to survive, keep doing what you've been doing. That
Exactly.
there isn't a choice, and they are much. I keep saying this. They're actually much smarter than I was, and probably smarter than all of us. They're digital natives. They think quicker. They react quicker. And organizations that want to survive are going to figure out how to create an environment where, when they come in, we can get the best out of them and they can get the best out of us, not trying to make them something that they're not. And we'll all be better for it. Trust me, it'll be a little disconcerting for some, but we'll all be better as a community if we just lighten up and let them be who they are.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. The generational difference issue, and as a leader, you fully have to appreciate and understand the nuance there, and how you communicate between a boomer and an Xer is not the way you communicate with a Zer. And again, these are all things that we've had to learn the hard way. And that's why it's great to have these kinds of opportunities, like with the Leadership Academy, right? Is don't be the teenager who's going to go and make the mistake that dad tells you not to do, right? Take the advice that we've all learned the hard way because we've made those mistakes and learn from them, right? Ultimately, it's always my biggest frustration raising children. It's like, I told you this was going to happen, but they had to go figure it out for themselves. And I think that's just human nature. But I think it's also important, if we develop, again, the right mindset, the right mindfulness, the right architecture for in our leadership development programs, things like that, is to take the evidence that we've built over the past and the experience we've built over the past, since 1960, and shape it and mold it into something that you can use, learn from it, but also mold it into what you need it to be going forward. And I think, again, as good leaders, that's ultimately we have to create those environments for the next generation coming up. Absolutely.
Yeah, very well said.
Well, thank you to our panel for joining us today. Maybe some final thoughts. Those were all great final thoughts, by the way. Just some final thoughts, either on your presentation or advice for folks that may be watching that are excited to learn more about being in a leadership position. Maybe they're currently in a supervisory role. Any final thoughts that you might have for our audience? And again, we so appreciate you taking the time to be here with us tonight. So
I would say just a quick final thought, and I said it in my presentation, the bottom line is, if it's not you, then who? Who's it going to be that's going to take charge and own this moving forward and continue to pave the pathway of our journey? It has to be you. So don't be afraid. Get in there, know what you know, learn what you don't, and keep us moving in the right direction.
Chief, thank you for those words. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think, I guess the good news is if you have a failed EMS system where you're on your way in that direction and you think that's where you're headed, the good news is you can fix it and it does get better. And you can do the right things to, put in place in order to effectuate the changes necessary to solve whatever your greatest challenges are. Ultimately, you've got to be a good leader, you've got to be a good communicator, you have to be a good listener. And you have to be engaged, whether that at all levels, whether that's with your workforce and as well as the politicians in your community. You have to learn how to lead down, lateral, and up, and those are all things that take time. I think as a leader, probably the most important piece of advice I could give is find a mentor. That's probably a really important thing, and mentorship is more about not just about getting advice, but having a safe environment to bounce ideas you might have off or get reactions to people, provide you with the critical feedback that others may not be willing to give you because of the position you're in, but ultimately you need to hear. So, I just a couple of little tidbits for those emerging leaders to be thinking about as you take your next steps on your career path. Thanks.
Well said. Thank you, Jonathan and David.
Yeah, EMS systems are really people systems. They're all about people. It's about having groups of human beings who are interested in helping other human beings. And I can help you solve your recruitment and retention problem right now. Simply create an environment where people want to be there and they want to stay. It sounds simple, and it is. And that's going to require the system to change more than trying to change the people that you're trying to bring in. You went out and looked for those people because they had skills, because they have talent, because they're creative, because they have passion, because they have compassion. So create systems around them so they can feel safe doing that work. And you will not believe the things you'll all be able to accomplish, but you have to accomplish it. And again, to the chief's point, it does take a village. We have to do all this stuff together.
Well, if it does take a village, we certainly have a great village to start with. I am so proud of all the interviews we've done, and this summit marks over 200 sessions that we've hosted over the last 5 years. Thanks to many of you on the panel, many of you that are watching, our other speakers, and the possibility that this next generation has to leverage the knowledge and the information that you've all distilled down into your sessions. I mean, really, it's a bright future, and you've all made that possible. So thanks for being here with us tonight. And thanks for spending some time on our daily debrief. Folks, you still have until 8 a.m. tomorrow for today's day number 1's sessions of the EMS Leadership Summit. You can still grab your free pass at emsleadershipsummit.com. And thanks again, Chief Bonsignor, Jonathan Washko, and Dr. David Daniels for being with us tonight.
Thank you all so much. It's just really a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right, what a fantastic panel! This live panel. I mean, it was just their sessions were, they knocked them out of the park, and tonight they really just brought some incredible sage words of advice for our next generation. So, Lisa, let's talk about the lineup for today, for tomorrow, I should say. I'm going to go ahead and share.
Yeah, we have a very power-packed day 2. One of the things I was really present to as people were sharing on the panel is the vast array of topics that we have, from why EMS systems fail, to psychological safety, to the space for grace, like all these amazing topics. And there's just something for everyone. So tomorrow is a Wednesday, April 10th, and we have on the panel, the lineup, Derek Hanley is there. He's the one you were speaking about, the photos from the front lines.
And most of his photos were featured in the Honorable Broken film. So we're really excited to see that woven through the film premiere this week as well. And we have Lieutenant David Dashinger, who's retired lieutenant, and Bonnie Rumley, who is a certified therapist. And both of them have a significant EMS background in leadership positions. and they are so passionate about the idea of how do we care for our own providers. They run the Responder Resiliency podcast and Responder Resiliency TV as well. And they featured 10 of their top interviews on different topics, and they brought in clips during our session that really highlighted all of these experts and what they're recommending. So the title that we came up with was a Presilience Toolbox for EMS leaders. It's how do we prepare people and have the tools as an organization. So they took the best of the best highlights, and we had a fantastic discussion about not only what's worked in the past, but what is the research showing for our first responders and how to prepare them.
Yeah, it's so great. And Rob Cook is joining us again. He's been here, I think, 2 previous summits, and his talk is called Battlefield to Breakthrough: Full Spectrum Wellness. And he really approaches this whole idea of trauma and overcoming trauma from a unique place. And his approach and the work that he does with folks is really shifting how you relate to your thoughts and how you relate to what's happened to you. And it's a very it's profound to hear him talk about what he's been through as a special forces. He's retired, but he was in special forces, and he was in protection of very high ranking officials. And some of the things that he's experienced, and how this way of thinking about it and his approach has really changed for him. And it's pretty amazing. So I really am excited to hear what people have to say about that presentation after it airs tomorrow.
And Lisa, I love that Rob blends both the physical fitness aspect of his work and his background with the mental fitness and how people really understand themselves. So that's what I love about Rob, being able to really embrace both of those sides of his passions.
Absolutely.
And we have Maggie Adams. We mentioned briefly, Maggie put together a presentation on community paramedicine and really reimbursement and compensation. This is post ET3, right? And really discovering ways of reporting social determinants of health, things that our providers are already doing now. They're already noticing when people have food insecurities. They're already noticing when people have medication compliance issues. And Maggie, with her company, EMS Financial, has been acting as a consultant for years to very large systems. And she really outlines how agencies can start collecting this information so that they can then work with their health plans to get reimbursed and compensated. While Medicare, the CMS may not pay for a non-transport currently, doesn't mean there's not another program down the road that will with Medicare, but Medicaid, a lot of state Medicaid programs are paying for these historically uncompensated levels of care, as well as the commercial payers, the managed providers. And she's really got some mind-blowing statistics around the payer mixes that are out there and how you can really help improve your revenue and your efficiency. So anybody that's even contemplated a community paramedicine model, or maybe they're doing pseudo community paramedicine work now, it's really helpful to get paid for the work that you're already doing. So that's what I love about Maggie's advocacy for our industry.
I just love how she comes at the issue.
Yeah.
It is unique and creative and innovative. And, if you have, even if you're not doing paramedicine, you're going to get ideas about reimbursement just from watching. So I highly, highly recommend
And just as organizations, we're stuck in our own echo chambers if we don't reach outside of our industry or outside of our organizations. The financial industry behind EMS reimbursement, I mean, that's a whole other world. We're so focused on clinical care most of the time. We're just hoping that the financial pieces of these, that ship is really being held together. So that's why I love having outside experts, especially that know the nuances of reimbursement. People like Maggie Adams, Isaac Sobel, Asbel Montez, like all of these people that really they live and breathe this stuff. So that's why we featured them.
And when you think about it, how would people have access to this if it wasn't for our summit? Not to pat ourselves on the back, but it's one of the things I'm so proud of is that, we feature other speakers so that people can really get the benefit of so much knowledge that they otherwise wouldn't have a chance to have. So, and then of course, last but not least for tomorrow is Chris Cebollero. He joined us last night. He's such a terrific guy, such an amazing amount of energy.
Brings so much energy.
So much energy, and he is sharing his program Ultimate Self Mastery, becoming the best version of yourself, and it's so in line with what we teach about how it really does start with us. It's easy to look out and try to fix other people, but our own self mastery, being on the learning curve, recognizing that we don't have all the answers, and being willing to discover our blind spots and discover what we could be doing differently. And it's a very powerful presentation that Chris is providing us with. So
Absolutely.
really
And
exciting lineup.
exciting lineup for tomorrow. But folks, day number 1 is not over. You have until 8 a.m. Eastern, so another less than 13 hours or so to watch those sessions. If you would like lifetime access to all the speaker sessions, to get early access to the rest of the sessions for the week, you can go to emsleadershipsummit.com/AAP, all access pass. And you can get your all access pass thanks to NEMSMA, who is providing the approved continuing education credits, and they're NEMSMA approved. So if you're a supervisor, you're a manager, or you're a leader in an organization, and maybe you're looking to pursue a credential, NEMSMA, National EMS Management Association, has 3 levels of credentials, and those hours count towards obtaining one of those credentials. So certainly a credential to work towards if that is something that you're interested in. Lisa, I'd like to mention other folks in our virtual exhibitor hall. And let me
Yes, I was just going to suggest that. And really, I'm inviting our audience to consider, going to these booths, interacting with them. They make our work possible, this summit possible. So we really hope that you will go download material and see what they have to offer.
Absolutely. CAMS, the Commission on the Accreditation of Medical Transport Systems. I think historically, a lot of people think of this as just ground transport, rotary wing. They have dived into multiple different realms of what we do pre-hospitally, as well as publishing the first mobile integrated health standards. And they're actually in the review of the second standards. They're hoping that more people in our industry will comment on these standards. So you can go to this booth, you can click through to download a copy of the standards if you're interested in getting your program accredited, or you want to give them feedback on what your community paramedicine mobile integrated health program has done. And they're looking for your comments and feedback about how to make the next set of standards that much better. And so if you're looking at ways to optimize your organization, CAMS has definitely put together a roadmap for organizations to follow, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the operations and the ideas behind having a more sustainable and in a program that you can proudly point to that you are accredited by a national organization. That could bring a lot more credit to making these arguments when you're talking to your elected officials as far as why you're funding programs or why you're doing the things that you're doing, because these are in alignment with what the national standards are. I love that one of the standards points to having a just culture. So not having a punitive culture, overwhelmingly blaming culture, but actually realizing, like Dr. Daniel said, that the system is producing these results. Unfortunately, it's our people that just end up at the end of that Swiss cheese model, that our safeguards have failed them, and that's what's caused the result. All too often, we just point at the provider, and that's just one of the things that the Commission on the Accreditation of Medical Transport Standards actually points to is a belief in your leadership team adopting this idea of a just culture and then rolling it out to your people, so that people feel safe reporting incidents, and they feel safe pointing out when things might go awry, or they had a medication error. Are they going to feel safe if reporting that? Do they know what the consequences would be? So.
Absolutely. So important. Another one we want to focus on or highlight is Wayfound. Actually, it's beyond. I
Operational
always say
stress.
beyond, before.
Or
It's not beyond, before operational stress. Wayfound is the organization, but this is their program. They're returning sponsor, and they have an opportunity to win a prize. You can enter to win and just fill out the information. And if you want to go back up to the material there, really good stuff that they have available in their booth. The video, this idea of resiliency based is so important because human beings are naturally resilient, and it's not. I think it's not leveraged enough when you realize, wow, look how much I've been through. Look how much in my life. Forget even the EMT or paramedic but like just in life, we all have resilience, and a lot of times we lose sight of that.
and their programs are research backed. They're a Canadian company, and they've done a lot for the first responders and in helping organizations prepare their first responders for what they will inevitably be in contact with, those operational stressors, and giving them the tools to deal with it, rather than us having to end up deal with the aftermath of what happens when they will be exposed to these operational stressors. So there's a link here for their program, and please feel free, please do enroll for the grand prize drawing we're going to have on Saturday.
Awesome. And then how about Wendy's booth, the wealth management, kind of in line with, it's good that they're side by side because that's her, I love the name of her company. Yeah, her area of expertise, WELLTH, wealth, not your traditional way of spelling it. But Wendy has a terrific program called Reach for Resiliency, and she has a lot of free programs on her website, and definitely think it's worth watching the video there and really seeing, how do we prepare ourselves for what we are going to encounter, right? Not waiting till after the fact, but really beforehand, being able to prepare for and understand how to deal with the various emotions and thoughts that come our way.
And
It's really great.
one of the many things I love about Wendy is she spent over 25 years teaching science and anatomy and physiology and helping paramedics for 25 years in her career. And she dove deep after retirement into the world of mindfulness studies and wanting to link the science and the research behind mindfulness and helping providers have a clear state of mind when they're going to be faced with whatever operational stressors or the result of what they're going to be exposed to. So Wendy, also from Canada, does a lot of great work with first responders throughout Canada and North America. So we love any chance to highlight her work, and she has a session coming up this week as well.
Yes, on Friday she'll be here.
Let's highlight our group, because we never talk at the summit. The thing I do love is talking to all of these various speakers, and I love how adjacent the work is and complementary the work is to the curriculum that Lisa, you and I have developed for the last, really working together the last 13 years. The last 10 years is the EMS Leadership Academy. And we have put together so many resources. And really, I love that we've leaned into the power of virtual. You and I have spent so much time driving around the country or flying around the country to deliver in-person training, and people think there's such a need for in-person training. And the thing I love about virtual training, especially with the model that we've developed, having a virtual but a studio experience where it's all live and delivered live, is that people again get out of the echo chambers of their local organizations and how it's being done in their area. We've had people connect from Alaska to Belize to the UK and all over the country, and realize that their problems really aren't unique to just them and their organization, right? They get so excited to hear that people in other areas of the world are experiencing similar issues, and the bonds that they create out of that are fantastic. So you and I have created EMS Leadership Live, an opportunity to leverage the studio that I know you're in right now, our EMS Leadership Academy studio, which is like a big television studio. And we've got our wall of televisions where we can bring people in live to have a front row experience, to have breakouts and converse with each other, to bring their biggest issues that they're facing, get coaching if they want coaching, and step through our framework for change. Again, change at the level of self. You can't expect other people to change if you're not willing to change. And too often, I think our people are blaming their people within their organization that they are the problem without first really taking a look in the mirror themselves.
And if you want to really get an insider's view of our framework, we are presenting a session on Thursday where we really talk about how we came to know what we know and why we have found it to be so effective with the organizations we've worked with. And you'll hear a little bit more about, what's on offer from our 3-day intensive immersive training where you get a front row seat and you don't have to have the added expense of travel and eating out and getting coverage for your family and all of that. So look forward to that on Thursday.
A shout out to Martin Gerby from the Fire Rescue TV Network for simulcasting and being our media sponsor here. We are simulcasting across the High Performance EMS Network, the Fire Rescue TV Network, the EMS Leadership Academy brands, as well as about 400 fire and EMS stations through.
Shout out to our EMS stations and fire stations.
Through multiple digital signage platforms. And it's just exciting to have that opportunity to, again, create this platform where we can amplify the message of people that are innovative in our industry, that really believe in the humanity of our organizations, that we have without people, we really don't have much of an organization. So
we have buildings,
right,
and furniture,
and vehicles,
and vehicles that don't move.
Right. So, folks, thank you for joining us for our daily debrief. If you have questions, feel free to reach out, support@emsleadershipacademy.com. If you haven't already, you can download the playbook at emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook, and you can see our complete lineup of all of our sessions, as well as download some other articles that we've included in the playbook. We've got information for the whole week. Every day at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be going live with a panel of the day's speakers and really highlighting the sessions from the day and the sessions to look forward to.
And I really want to add one more plea to for folks on Thursday and Saturday. We are going to be doing the Honorable but Broken EMS in Crisis. We are just beyond privileged to be sharing this with folks. It's a $15 ticket. The entire $15 is going to the charity that supports this documentary. If you're an all access pass holder, the price of the ticket is included in your all access pass. So we invite you to consider buying a ticket, inviting other people to buy a ticket. If you go to the exhibitor hall, which is emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit, you can get your ticket.
Well, Lisa, thanks again for being with us tonight and all your work with this summit. Folks, for watching and joining in. Spread the word, email your colleagues, let them know what's going on. And again, if you haven't signed up already, it's still not too late. We have a whole week's worth of content.
Absolutely. And if you're getting, anything out of course you are, if you're watching the presentations and you're learning new information, don't be afraid to share that too. Share it in your email to people, share it on social media. We really want people to access this free information and help people just be the best they can be. Thank you, Robbie, for everything you do. There's no way this would happen without all of your behind the scenes work. And I love how you MC this daily debrief. You're like a pro.
Ditto, my friend. All right, folks, we will see you tomorrow live. Thanks for being with us.
Bye, everyone.